Good evening, everyone. Please take your seats. Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council representative, Uncle Brendan Karen, will now open the ceremony with his welcome to country.
The hat is off. Let's get down to business. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Brendan. I'm the cultural representative, cultural educator for Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council. Our Aboriginal Land Councils under Australia's Land Rights Act are the cultural authority. Guardians, custodians, caretakers of lands and waters within our boundaries, and the voice of community. I'm here this evening to welcome you to country, and I'm going to be very honest here. Over the last 2 to 3 years, my repertoire of welcome to country has changed to more of educating. And I often think, you know, how much longer do we have to continue to educate about our culture and tradition? The welcome to country's copped a bit of a kicking over the last few years, and you know what, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and I often think about it. And I think the main reason why we cop so much is because since day one of colonisation, we were never part of the us. We became the them. We've never had control over our own narrative. Someone else is always telling our story. What's good for our health, what's not good for our health, what families we can live with, what families we can't, what lands we can live on, right down to even how long we've been here for. 40 to 60,000 years. Carbon dating only goes back 80,000 years, maybe. But we've been here since before the beginning of time. Our stories, we talk about the creation of lands and waters on country. Down here there's a story of Darramulam and Biami. Biami sent his son down Darramulam, and Darramulam walked around and created and gave law and language to everything. He walked from one mountaintop to another mountaintop. I can show you the footprints on these mountaintops where Darramulam walked. When he finished, he reascended back into the sky. I can show you the exact same place where that happened, where he reascended. These are our stories. Our stories are no different when we talk about creation. Are they any different than any creation story you read or hear about in any holy book? And I often think, with the changing of words, if it wasn't our culture and we changed that word culture to religion, would we have different outcomes? But because, again, we've been placed into them, this is our problem. How do we get out of that umbrella of being the them? Now, the welcome to country. This is a ceremony, a protocol about having respect for your neighbours. Why wouldn't we as Aboriginal people have this? Why wouldn't we? We don't walk on each other's country unless we're welcomed on each other's country. It's disrespectful. And back in those days, you could get into a lot of trouble for doing that. There's a man over at Narrabeen, he's been named the Narrabeen Man, the world's oldest recorded homicide. This man was walking on someone else's country unwelcome. That was the end result. You don't walk into your neighbour's house, help yourself to their food and have a camp on their bed. Some of you might. I don't know what type of relationship you have with your neighbours. When you welcome strangers into your house, you all have an expectation. The expectation you have is they respect your property and everything in your house. You show them where they can sit, where they can't sit, where the toilet is, what food is available, and you all have your sacred sites in your house, the no-go zones. It's what we call poison country. Your bedroom is a no-go zone. You don't welcome strangers in and show them where your bedroom is. It's a sacred site. Sometimes ceremony takes place in that room. Sometimes it doesn't. But again, I don't know. You might welcome strangers into your house and show them where your bedroom is. You might... You might have a pineapple on your front door. I don't know. It's 2025. These principles are the same as when we're welcomed onto each other's country. And this is common sense. I need to know what food's available on your country. Where are your sacred sites I can visit and can't visit? Where's your poison country I'm not allowed to go to? Where are your sacred waters I'm allowed to drink from? What are your totems? We don't eat our totems. And where's your toilet? Principles are exactly the same. This is what a welcome to country is. It's not a ceremony that we've invented to cater for non-Indigenous people, even though it pays a lot more now than it did traditionally. Ernie Dingo didn't invent it either. But this is what a welcome to country is. I always take the opportunity to educate about it because there's only two reasons why people don't like a welcome to country. One is ignorance and two is just flat out racist. After I've educated you and you still don't like the welcome to country, it makes it easier for me to know what box to put you in. And then we can have a cultural discussion in the car park when I'm finished. I did say cultural discussion. I'm glad I got a laugh. I was at an IT event last week. IT people are no sense of humour. And I said that same joke and they shit themselves. And I noticed they were all sat up a bit straighter in the chair and I had to say to them, I'm only joking. I'm glad we've got a sense of humour in here tonight. Tonight we're gathered on the lands of the grass tree people, Gadigal. Gadi means grass tree. Gal means people. The Gadigal are one of 29 clans that made up the Eora Nation. This word Eora, I know we've all heard of it, I'll tell you where it come from. A Gadigal woman by the name of Paddy Garang. Paddy Garang was one of the first to interpret her language into English, and she had a very close relationship with a fella down at Botanical Gardens, and she was asked, what do you call this place? Paddy Garang pointed and said, from the ocean to the Hawkesbury, to the Nepean, to the Georges River, Eora Nation. In between those three mighty and beautiful rivers, there was 29 clans made up the Eora Nation. And the name of the clan we're gathered on here this evening is Gadigal. So always, first and foremost, on behalf of those Gadigal ancestors, because I know their spirits are still in the lands and the waters. On behalf of Metropolitan Aboriginal Land Council as the cultural authority, our board and our members, it gives me great honour to welcome you all here this evening. Welcome to the lands and waters of the Grass Tree people. I pay my respects to my elders, past, present and emerging, and I always extend those to everyone else as well, and to your elders. The only difference between us is our language. And some of us are better looking than others. But welcome. I'd just like to finish off by playing a welcome song on the Yidaki. This is not called a didgeridoo. After tonight, erase the word didgeridoo. Didgeridoo is not an Aboriginal word, it's a European word. When the first European heard this instrument, what he heard was a song. Didgeridoo, 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 didgeridoo. And he went, oh, that's called a didgeridoo. Very clever man. He saw these things playing. And he said, oh, they're called tapping sticks. Same man that named Manly Manly. Let me just very quickly share that. And I know up there in the audio box they're getting a bit stressy. They only gave me a certain amount of time. But I've been waiting 200 years. They go on. When Captain Phillip sailed through the heads, Phillip came on this side, Cook came on the other side. Phillip came through the heads and he had his telescope out. He looked across at what's now Manly Beach. He sung out to his offsider and he said, I say, come hither. And his offsider hithered. And he pulled his telescope out and looked across. His offsider's comment was, oh, they're quite manly. You're looking at naked Aboriginal men on the beach. This is how Manly got its name. May not have happened the way I said it happened. But I now dare anyone in the room to prove me wrong. So in my language, we've got 50 different language names for this instrument. Not one of us call it a didgeridoo. Yidaki. The word yidaki means voice. So when we play yidaki, we sing through it. While we play, we just don't blow it and make a noise. Yidaki does not come from New South Wales. It's not a traditional instrument down here. It's a borrowed instrument. I was born and bred here in Sydney, lived here my whole life, and back as a teenager I used to busk at a lovely place called King's Cross. And back in those days it was the Wild West. Easy money. Because you get young fellas up there on the grog, on the drink, chucking money. But they used to annoy me quite a lot. Oh, brother, brah, can you make this noise on the ditch? Brah, make the noise of a fire engine. Whatever else to say, brah, it's not called a ditch, brah. It's called you'll be. You'll be sore when I hit you with it, so keep moving. So enough, I'd just like to finish off. I've had a big day, I'm unwinding. I've got to go home to the family, so I'm delaying that as long as I can. I'd just like to finish off by playing a welcome song of the Yidaki, and I'm going to give my apologies. I'd love to stay after, but I have to pay a white man by the name of Wilson for parking on my own land.
Thank you very much, Brendan, for that very entertaining welcome, and it's always great to see you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carla Grant, and I'm delighted to be joining you this evening as your MC for this year's event. Welcome everyone to the 2025 Australian Human Rights Awards. Whether you're here at the UTS Great Hall in Sydney or you're joining us online, it's fantastic to be welcoming you to this wonderful celebration of individuals and organisations doing such great work around our country. Will you please welcome to the stage UTS Vice-Chancellor Professor Andrew Parfitt, representing our generous host, UTS.
So thank you to Uncle Brendan for the welcome, and to everybody. It's great to see so many people here and online. And let me begin also by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. They are the traditional owners of the land and they're custodians of the place where this campus now stands. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present, acknowledging them particularly in their role as custodians for knowledge at this place. So on behalf of UTS, a very warm welcome to everybody, and in particular the extraordinary finalists for the 2025 awards, and tonight's orator, Juliana Nkrumah. And we're honoured to once again host this really important and significant event. The Human Rights Awards recognise individuals and organisations who challenge injustice and who work often quietly and without recognition to protect the dignity and rights of others. At UTS, social justice isn't just an ideal or a badge that we put on things. It sits at the very heart of our purpose as a public institution. Through our teaching, through our research, and through our engagement with communities, locally and across the country, and even globally, we seek to improve lives and to address the conditions that allow inequality, discrimination, and exclusion to persist. This work includes partnerships with First Nations communities, efforts to prevent and respond to gender-based violence, support for refugees and people seeking asylum, and pathways that widen access to education for people who've historically been excluded. And universities have a particular responsibility in this work. We must confront inequality within our own systems, including the systematic barriers that prevent people from accessing and succeeding in education. We must stand against racism, against gendered violence and discrimination in all its forms, and we must protect spaces for respectful debate and free expression, which are essential for a healthy democracy. Equally important is the role we play in shaping our graduates with a strong civic mindset. Students leave UTS and many universities around the country not only with knowledge and skills, but also with a sense of responsibility to their communities and to the broader world. The values they carry into their professions and lives will help shape more than just the future. This year has again reminded us of the fragility of many of the rights we too often take for granted. Around the world and here at home, communities continue to face deepening inequality. And against this backdrop, the work of all of you in this room is essential. Tonight's an opportunity to pause and reflect on progress. The impact of your work is felt in policy, but also in communities and in lives. And so to each of the award finalists, I offer my congratulations and thanks. We're proud to stand with you this evening and to be part of this celebration. Enjoy the evening.
Many thanks, Andrew, for welcoming us to the UTS Great Hall. Tonight is all about 20 incredible people and organisations and the communities they represent and serve. Tonight is also about International Human Rights Day, which took place just 2 days ago on Wednesday, the 10th of December. You'll be hearing more about all our wonderful finalists throughout the evening and the incredible work they've been doing to advance human rights and social justice here in Australia. While much of the focus of the evening is on them, it's important to acknowledge that tonight's event is also about all of you. The people in this room and those watching online are all supporters and advocates for human rights, And you also deserve special thanks for supporting this wonderful showcase of extraordinary people and organisations working to promote and protect human rights. One of these organisations is the Australian Human Rights Commission, which has presented these awards since 1987. I'd now like to ask Commission President Hugh de Kretser to welcome us all on behalf of the Commission.
Welcome. It's so great to be here. This is my first Human Rights Awards as President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, but I've attended a few of these events as a guest before, and I've always loved attending because it's always an inspiring event. It's inspiring to join together to celebrate Australia's human rights champions and to reaffirm our shared commitment to upholding human rights. I acknowledge the many human rights leaders and community leaders in the audience tonight, and I particularly acknowledge previous human rights medalist Juliana Nkrumah, who's delivering the oration tonight, Mark Dreyfus, the Australian Government's Special Envoy for Human Rights, Zanita Mascarenhas, the Chair of the Parliament's Human Rights Committee, and David Shoebridge, who's a member of that Human Rights Committee as well, and former President Ros Croucher, and many friends and human rights champions. Thank you to UTS for hosting tonight, and to Vice Chancellor and President Andrew Parfitt for hosting us. Thank you for your words. We are, of course, meeting on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I thank Uncle Brendan Karen for his welcome to country. First Peoples have long endured and continue to endure human rights violations in this country. I acknowledge their ongoing strength, their resistance, and their advocacy. And I also celebrate their achievement of the first treaty this year in Victoria. We know... Uncle Brendan talked about the dispossession and the lack of control, and it's things like treaty which will deliver power and control and resources to First Peoples so that they have power and control over the issues that affect their lives. Human rights are standards that governments around the world have agreed to uphold so that everyone can live a safe and dignified life in freedom, peace, and respect. Human rights belong to all of us, no matter who we are or where we are. They're about being treated fairly, treating others fairly, and having the freedom to choose how we live our lives. Human rights reflect values like equality, freedom, respect, dignity, kindness, thinking of each other, and looking out for each other. We're lucky to live in a peaceful, prosperous democracy like Australia. For most people, most of the time, Australia is a wonderful place to live. We should celebrate this. Many Australians don't think much about their human rights as they go about their lives. But human rights can be fragile, and we know that they are being denied to too many people in our nation. In Australia, many older people living in aged care homes or people with disability living in disability homes experience abuse and neglect. Many people can't access adequate housing. Many women continue to experience family violence, and the rights of trans and gender diverse people are under threat. There's an ongoing human rights divide between people in the cities and people in the bush, particularly in relation to education, jobs, health, and the impact of climate change. Only four of the 19 closing the gap targets are on track: early childhood education, jobs, land and sea rights. We should absolutely celebrate that those things are on track and that progress is being made. Other measures like Year 12 and tertiary education completion are improving, but not fast enough to meet targets. And then, shamefully, some issues are going backwards. In particular, Australian governments are imprisoning Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and removing their children into child protection systems at worsening rates. There's been limited progress on raising the age of criminal responsibility, which is still 10 in most jurisdictions. And states and territories are increasingly pursuing harsh, counterproductive criminal justice policies that breach human rights standards. We've seen racism rise, and we're seeing dangerous and divisive anti-migrant sentiment. Australia can and should do so much better on human rights. Australia has generally been a good, positive influence on human rights on the world stage. And in an increasingly volatile world where the global consensus on human rights is being eroded, Australia's global leadership is needed now more than ever. At home, we need to translate our global commitments to protect people's rights into our domestic laws. And the best way to do this is through an Australian Human Rights Act. An Australian Human Rights Act would protect people's rights in law, it would improve their understanding of rights, and it would give people the power to take action if their rights are breached. I've seen firsthand the positive impact a Human Rights Act is having and has had at the state level. And there's so many examples, big and small, of the difference that Human Rights Acts that we have in Victoria, ACT and Queensland are making. From promoting dignity for people with disability to stopping families from being evicted into homelessness. Human Rights Acts help to prevent human rights breaches from occurring. They do this by legally requiring governments and public servants to properly consider and act compatibly with people's human rights when they deliver services, make decisions and develop policy. These legal obligations force governments to think about people's rights before they act, and in turn they foster a better understanding of rights and a culture of protecting people's rights. There's a community campaign for an Australian Human Rights Act backed by over 100 organisations. First Nations, faith-based organisations, disability, refugee, migrant, homelessness, sexual assault, privacy organisations, unions and more. Many of the organisations represented in the audience tonight. Research shows strong and consistent public support, and last year the Australian Parliament's Human Rights Committee recommended adopting a Human Rights Act. I firmly believe that an Australian Human Rights Act is a long overdue missing part of the democratic foundations of this country. It would help to strengthen the social fabric of our nation and promote Australian values of fairness, equality and respect for each other. We also need much better human rights education, including to address poor public knowledge around civics and democracy. Education standards in this area have been neglected and activities are inadequately resourced, coordinated, evaluated and sustained. A national action plan for human rights education would promote understanding of rights in schools, workplaces, communities and in government, and it'll be a focus of our new strategic plan next year. Our national discrimination laws are ageing, inconsistent and rely on individual people having to complain to change unfair systems. They need to be modernised and improved with a much stronger focus on prevention. And the Australian Government's response to the Disability Royal Commission recommendations provides a pathway to reform not only our national disability discrimination laws, but all our national discrimination laws to make them more effective and more consistent. We also need to tackle racism in a systemic national way. The Commission's National Anti-Racism Framework provides a roadmap for addressing the scourge of racism, and we need the Australian Government and all governments to get behind it. And we need stronger national action on truth-telling, treaty, self-determination and equality for Australia's First Peoples. Friends, this is the job ahead of us, and I look forward to working with you to advance human rights over my term as President of this vital national institution that will celebrate 40 years since its establishment next year. But tonight, first and foremost, is about celebration. Celebrating the people across our nation in the cities, in the towns and the outback who are making people's lives better. There were so many incredible nominations this year. I think we had the highest number of nominations of any year we've run these awards since 1987. It was so difficult to choose the finalists, let alone the winners. And in judging the nominations for the Human Rights Medal, I was constantly amazed by the inspiring people who have dedicated their lives to helping others in need. This is what human rights is about. To everyone who is nominated, to the finalists and winners, I say thank you for making our country a better and a fairer place. And thank you to UTS, our sponsors, our partners, and particularly to the incredible staff at the Human Rights Commission for doing what you do and for making tonight possible. Let the awards begin. Thanks.
Thank you, Hugh. To set the scene for the evening, let's hear what human rights mean to ordinary Australians.
Human rights means safety, it means empowerment, it means care, it means love, and this means looking after each other.
Human rights for me is being able to choose my own religion and practice my faith.
And I can leave my religion or follow none at all.
Human right means freedom of expression without oppression.
Derechos humanos significa que nuestra hija tenga derecho a educación sin importar del lugar de donde venga.
Human rights mean I get holiday pay.
Human rights means we can live the lives that we choose.
Human rights means I can escape conflict and start a fresh life for my family and I.
Inherent and undeniable protections to which we are all entitled. They're the guiding principles for equality that we are obliged to affirm and protect and uphold as individuals or as states. And they are the universal standards that actually unite us, regardless of our ethnicity, religion, gender, or background.
It certainly gives me a direction which I think we all need. But to the majority of people, it will be important for them to identify with it. Because if we observe human rights, we can move on, have a better understanding for the people around you.
Many of the freedoms and rights that we take for granted, just the right of children to go to school, the right for all of us to participate in civil society, the right for people to be free from torture, from arbitrary detention. All of these just really basic things that Australians don't have to wrestle with are issues, fundamental issues for people in many parts of the world.
It's very important for Australia to protect the human rights and value it and cherish it. It's like air. It's something which is not visible, but you don't realize it when you cannot breathe. Then you die. And people take it for granted because they don't see it. But you will realize it when it's taken away from you.
Human rights clearly mean many different things to many different people. For our next speaker, defending and advancing human rights has been a key focus for most of her life. Juliana Nkrumah is one of Australia's leading advocates for the rights of African, migrant and refugee women. For more than 30 years, Juliana has worked to empower the people and communities she serves. Currently the manager of Gender Equality and Women's Safety at Settlement Services International, Juliana has had an impressive career in roles which have had significant impact on responses to gender-based violence and women's safety, equity and rights. Juliana is a subject matter expert on violence against women and the modern slavery and trafficking of women. Juliana has also led Australia's work on female genital mutilation and the impact of this cultural practice on diaspora communities. In 2015, she founded African Women Australia, a not-for-profit group that provides African women who are arriving in Australia with a place to raise their voice. Juliana has served on numerous boards of not-for-profits and community organisations and is a formidable force in challenging and encouraging us all to thrive and to not take no for an answer. Among the many honours conferred on Juliana over the years is a member of the Order of Australia for her significant service to the community, particularly the welfare of women and refugees. Juliana was also the worthy recipient of the 2023 Australian Human Rights Medal, and it's in this capacity that we welcome her tonight to deliver the 2025 Human Rights Day Oration, an honour which is conferred on each medalist. Juliana's oration today coincides with this year's 50th anniversary of the Racial Discrimination Act. Will you please welcome to the stage Juliana Nkrumah.
Okay, good evening. I'm working to time, all right? Okay. When I first arrived in Australia, a famous Australian singer had just released one of her most famous songs, I Should Be So Lucky. As I stand here tonight before you all good people, I ask myself, should I feel so lucky? Should I feel lucky to have received the prestigious Australian Human Rights Medal in 2023 in the year marking 70 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Should I feel so lucky to be delivering this oration in 2025, the 50th anniversary of enacting Australia's Racial Discrimination Act? Should I feel lucky? But I don't. In fact, luck is got nothing to do with it. Luck is not the word. It's not the sentiment. I am here because it is time. I start by posing these questions not because I'm putting myself down, rather because I am very consciously aware of how women who look like me are positioned in Australia. And that positioning is not accidental. It is structural, and it is based on an invisible pecking order, the kind of social stratification that has framed Australia since invasion. Tonight, I stand with humility on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay respect to the elders past and present who have sustained the land and its customs irrespective of the impact of colonization and entrenched dispossession of land, resources, language, and customs. As a migrant from another Commonwealth country, I understand the impact of colonization, but the dispossession then was nowhere near the level that has been experienced by the Eora Nation and hundreds of other First Peoples nations across the continent. Before I introduce myself, I would like to pause and dedicate this speech to a very dear friend of mine who said to me last Saturday, said to my husband actually last Saturday, I'll be honored to be there. And on Monday morning, at 3 a.m., he passed. So I dedicate it to my dear friend Martin Sanau Kwakwa. And I dedicate it also to my husband, my dear husband who gave me wings to fly in this society, in this community. So Jojo, thank you. So I introduce myself. My name is Juliana Nkrumah. You've heard that, haven't you? That is my colonial name and my borrowed name. The name that smooths the edges, that makes the outside world comfortable, that keeps me vaguely illegible to participate in systems that were never built for the likes of me. But when I need to call my name in full truth, when I need to speak truth to power, I answer the name that positions me within my family, my heritage, Ampofua. Medine di Ampofua, don't ask me for the meaning of that. That meaning is not significant. Ask about its significance. So when I mention my name Ampofua, you say, Okesu, Oyahini, or Chiamai. She who speaks her truth to the point of tears, a magnet that attracts kings and nations. So while walking on this land, I tread with humility and absolute respect. Had it been for my land, I would have asked you to tread the same way, with respect, as an older woman and a custodian with deep sense of responsibility. Here, in this land, on this land, I bring the same humility. For the earth is heavy with the stories of those who walked before us. I come from a Fanti and a Santiachim heritage, born into post-colonial Gold Coast, not that one there, modern-day Ghana. I carry with me a deep sense of fairness, a capacity to spot injustice, and a boldness to attempt to call it out, a recipe for being unpopular. So I must warn you, I might lose a few friends after this event, and that's okay. It is what it is, as long as I'm walking true to myself. I was reminded recently by the Race Discrimination Commissioner Giri Sivaranman of an important legacy that I carry with me, That is the Freedom Arc of the Independence Square in Accra, the capital of Ghana, which commemorates the independence from British rule in 1957. In our conversation, I told him I thought the spirit and importance of Ghana's independence and national positioning was better expressed in the lyrics of Ghana's national anthem. Of course, Giri has no clue, do you, Giri? He has no clue of this music. So he inspired me in the desire to search and prove my case, even if it was to myself. I beg your indulgence. I bring you the lyrics of the first stanza of Ghana's national anthem. God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make our nation great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. Fill our hearts with true humility. Make us cherish fearless and honesty, and help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will and might forevermore. So, you know, when you see Ghanaians doing stuff, you know where it comes from. Stirring words, aren't they? Which we'll come back to as we follow my journey. Arriving in Australia with a master's degree in my back pocket and a wide-eyed baby strapped to my back, ready to support my husband through his postgraduate studies. I didn't fit the box of the international student wife who was suspected to attend English classes. I immediately dived into job hunting, and after a month, I only found myself in a factory. My family's rent had to be paid. Food had to be put on the table, and all that was required for life was needed. 100 job applications later, and only through church networks, I landed one of the lowest entry point roles in the social sector, a staff member in a drop-in center. No wonder I suffered real culture shock and depression. But the fire within me and my passion for advocacy buoyed me on to find a home with an organization, voluntarily, of course, with marginalized groups, in particular, refugee women, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. I have selected as my title today, Anti-Racism, It Takes Courage. My life's work in Australia has been around advocating for social justice, mainly for refugee and migrant women and African women. Let's be clear. One cannot advocate for social justice while tiptoeing around racism. Yet, in Australia, say the words, our society is intrinsically racist, and suddenly it's hell no. Hail the Ghostbusters. That's because so much energy goes into denying racism, covering it up, and smoothing it over. The truth is, some people would rather cling to the comfort provided by the mirage of multiculturalism than confront the reality of racism in Australia, and the rest of us just have to cop it. And part of the problem sits right in our language, in the words we choose and the truths we refuse to name. If you really want to understand racism in this country, start by listening to our language. For this purpose, listen to the words we euphemize. The United Nations International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, we've euphemized into how many days? No? A day created for people around the world to confront racism has been reduced here in Australia to a pastel-colored celebration of getting along, kumbaya. You only have to look at what Google says about this day, and allow me to say that. The event's main purpose is to celebrate Australia's cultural diversity and promote inclusiveness, respect, and sense of belonging for all Australians. The ongoing theme is everyone belongs, and people often wear orange to show support for cultural diversity. We love harmony, and indeed harmony is great, and it's gratifying that we have a large measure of it here, but we also have racism, and our refusal to name it will not make it go away. This is what happens Thank you. This is what happens when a nation refuses to look at itself in the mirror. The language softens, the truth blurs, and the harm gets rebranded as something cheerful enough to put on a school calendar. We refuse to see what Geary referred to as a scar on the soul of the nation, and what Australia's renowned jurist Michael Kirby said was a social and cultural malaise. Australia loves to emphasize our commitment to multiculturalism, to the principles of access and equity, and the idea of fair go for everyone. But for many of the migrants who come to Australia expecting a multicultural haven, that fair go eludes us, because access to that fair go is often barred by racism. Multiculturalism doesn't mean the absence of racism. Rather, they coexist. What language of multiculturalism at best, masking racism, and at worst, denying it. And this is what euphemized language does. It lets us dodge accountability. It smooths over our cultural history and all the violence it entailed, the dispossession, the erasure, and importantly, the ongoing effects of colonization, especially for First Nations people. Again, let's be clear. No amount of soft language can hide the fact that our entire racial landscape sits on the unfinished business of colonization. And there will never be any racial justice in Australia without justice for our First Nations people. Every conversation about racism in this country must start there, and it is nothing more than performative. Because what good is it to talk about equity, fairness, justice, and inclusion in a country where the original injustice has never been repaired? What good is it when every policy, every program, every diversity initiative is being built on a ground that is still carrying the trauma of dispossession? It means we are trying to renovate a house while pretending the foundations are not cracked. We're drafting reconciliation statements while the underlying architecture of colonization remains untouched. My friends, we know that this unfinished business of colonization doesn't just stay in our history books. It has been reproduced in every institution we walk into today. And this includes our workplaces, where racism doesn't show up wearing a name badge. It shows up in the everyday decisions, the hierarchies, the recruitment panels, the leadership profiles, the culture fit rhetoric that quietly reproduces who gets to go along, who gets to lead. This is not a surprise either, because workplaces are microcosms of the nation itself, built on the same cracked foundations and shaped by the same self-serving narratives. So when employers gasp at the idea that racism is present in their organization, I always think, how could that be? How could systems born from colonial logic suddenly produce racial equality by accident? Let me give you an example, one that is all too familiar to people like me. And I'm going to be very careful in saying this. And now let me tell you, I often don't read speeches. I just go blah and go. African women in Australia are missing in leadership teams of the places in which we work and in the forums in which the decisions that affect our lives are made. They are missing at the significant tables and in the rooms where important things happen. When they work hard to get there, they are soon steadily replaced by others. And no explanations are given as the air is slowly sucked out of their spirits and they leave those tables and exit those rooms. No wonder the majority of them retire with less superannuation than most in the community. You will find African women in the prestigious spaces of government, business. You will not find African women in prestigious places of government, business, industry, or civil society in Australia. Yet African women are presidents, vice presidents, ministers, ambassadors, managing national portfolios, representing their countries at the United Nations and heading international organizations. So leaders here in Africa, in Australia, the same people who sit across from the desks from powerful African women at the UN, ask yourself, why are we invisible in the Australian workplace? Why are we enduring erasure? Workplaces and leadership teams aren't the only places where people of color and brown and black people experience racism. There I talk about the media. The media is a powerful tool in shaping public opinion and understanding. However, a lot of media reports on racial issues are very negative, creating divisive images and generating fear and driving communities apart. Throughout Australian history and recent history, this has been the experience of many different migrant communities. Right now, there seems to be a need to cast black African young men, especially in Melbourne, as machete-wielding thugs emerging from a dark cave of whom we all need to be scared. 30 years ago, African women were cast as barbaric offenders due to bearing the evidence of cultural practices like female genital mutilation, cutting in their bodies, a practice that violates their human rights. African communities, governments, and health providers work together to successfully address the issue, but the stigma persists. Media representation fuels racism. Efforts need to be made to highlight the stories of success, and there are many, I assure you. Representation in the media needs to include racialized groups, and we need to tell the stories that should be narratives which define us, stories of contribution, kindness, and love. Perhaps we have more of these stories. We wouldn't be dealing with what is fast becoming a massive security risk in our migrant communities, specifically as well as our nation more broadly, ethnic nationalism. Right now, we are witnessing scenes across the world and on our shores that I'm sure few of us would have not expected to see in 2025. With concern and horror, we've seen neo-Nazi marching in our streets, as well as white supremacists and ethnic nationalists flaunting their harmful views with impunity. It's scary and dystopian, especially for us as a country that prides itself on the strength of its multiculturalism and even markets itself as a successful story in this regard. But a thriving multicultural society relies on the thriving of communities from diverse backgrounds. And it is nothing but a pipe dream if our communities feel unsafe and unwelcome. If the threat of being targeted by racism prevents us from feeling comfortable to express our identities and cultures, or if our communities are being used as political scapegoats. Throughout the years, migrant communities have experienced this time and time again as we are blamed for whatever dominant systemic issue may be. Right now, it is housing crisis. Soon, it will likely be something else. As anti-immigration sentiments rises, all of this only sows division. It doesn't help create the society that we all want, where we enjoy equal access to opportunity and live free to be our full selves without fear of discrimination. We have already witnessed in real time the hope for such a society to disintegrate in the US. The current US administration has made it clear to diverse communities that they are less deserving of equality and freedom. Protections for migrants have been dismantled. Programs and initiatives to address discrimination have been eliminated, and implementation of racist policies have left people living in fear. But the nightmarish reality of the US right now doesn't also have to be ours. Nearly half of all Australians have either been born to overseas or have at least one parent who was born overseas. We don't have to pit different communities against each other in the race where no one truly wins. We better than that, we can choose a different future. Let's show the world that there is another way forward. So what we can do, how do we show that the better way forward is? The first step is having the courage to speak up, to call out racism when we see it or when we hear it, and not to let the poison seep in. In this regard, there's a better call to action. There's no better call to action than the one by the famous poet, Pastor Martin Niemöller. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me. And there was no one left to speak out for me. Niemöller wrote these words in response to the horrors of the Nazi Germany. Sadly, they are as relevant today as they ever were. Silence is what helps racism thrive. Silence manifests through fear. Fear of being seen as an agitator or being attacked on social media and then having to deal with the social or professional consequences that could have. This is where boldness is imperative. Inaction through silence will not protect you. When you refuse to speak up because you are not a member of the community that is being victimized or vilified, you are complicit. We cannot think that silence will protect us. We are all in this together. We sing, I am, you are, we are Australian. Why then do we tolerate and enable racism? We are all sick when the nation is sick, and the sickness is racism. This year, we've been commemorating 50 years of the Racial Discrimination Act. But what progress have we made in those 50 years when we are having the same ugly racist debates over and over again? And what progress have we made when we see blatant racism play out in the halls of our federal government, our federal parliament, and in response, sections of our media, opinion writers and influencers dismiss the such action as mere attention-seeking? What can be allowed and enabled before we gain courage to speak out? How much longer this scourge? Another 50 years? No. We must be bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. As it turns out, we have a bold solution to the problem. The kind of racism we see playing out in the street marches and in the media and in our parliament doesn't just come from nowhere. Australian civic societies institutions were originally established to protect white privilege through various mechanisms, and the white Australian policy being the ultimate expression of this. As a consequence, racist practices and attitudes continue to fester across our justice, health, and education sectors, as well as workplaces and in the media. Systemic issues need systemic solutions. This is why I was pleased to see the Australian Human Rights Commissioner's National Anti-Racism Framework released last year. As many of you know, it provides a roadmap for addressing racism across our workplaces, schools, universities, courts, prisons, and media. As the scourge of racism impacts so many different areas of our lives, this comprehensive approach is much needed. It is also exactly what we need as a society to truly create a fairer future, and the notion of our successful multiculturalism relies upon it. So, it is disappointing to see that a year after the framework was released, the Australian government has still not committed to its implementation and funding. It is the responsibility of those in power to ensure that our human rights are upheld. Yet many of you may be aware that Australia is the only Western democracy without a national charter of human rights. People are often shocked and when they first hear about this, and I don't blame them. As you have heard the President Hugh de Cresta allude to this evening, the Australian Human Rights Commission has been advocating for a Human Rights Act for many years. A Human Rights Act would require government and public servants to properly consider and act compatibly with human rights when making decisions, delivering services, and developing laws and policies. It would require government to think about the people's human rights before they act, which would foster a better understanding of rights and help build a culture that prevents human rights breaches. And it would give people the ability to take legal action on the courts if they feel their rights have been breached. Essentially, it's power to the people, what's not to like. Unfortunately, this is another instance where the national government is not seizing the day. Despite being handed a widely supported model for a Human Rights Act, there has been no word from the government, despite a parliamentary committee recommending it and the Labour Party's own policy platform including it. Well, it's time for them to step up and leave a legacy that will resonate through generations to come. By protecting and empowering everyday people like you and I. However, it's not just the federal government that needs to be stepping up and committing to effective solutions for addressing racism and protecting human rights in this country. What we need are leaders across all parliaments and all levels of government, as well as our faith leaders and leaders across our community and civil society to pay attention, stop being delusional about racism, and champion the policies and practices which promote anti-racism. We need them to first acknowledge and then reform the systems that foster erasure of racialized groups and be intentional about building a truly multicultural society, one which also acknowledges that a kaleidoscope of cultures will sometimes have their points of conflict. C'est la vie. The foundation of true multiculturalism involves a deep understanding and appreciation of our shared humanity and the values such as freedom, dignity, equality, respect, and kindness. I'm almost done, don't panic. If we act against racism, multiculturalism will deliver a stronger, healthier, safer, and more prosperous society. In the meantime, while politicians and policies drag along, we need to make the effort as individuals to promote anti-racism with all the resources we have and all the environments we find ourselves in. It's so easy to feel powerless in the face of these heavy issues, but we all have power in so many aspects of our day-to-day lives. We go to work and we are part of organizations and companies. Workplaces are such important spaces to address racism. Let's make sure our workplaces don't think a potluck lunch on Harmony Day is some sufficient solution. Let's actively work to get anti-racism included in policies and processes. Let's make anti-racism business as usual. We have families and friends, and I'm sure we can all identify a few people in our circle who could use a bit more educating. As we go to the holiday period, some of us might even be confronted with those that need a lot more educating. Let's have some uncomfortable conversations, shall we? Instead of letting their comments slide. And in the age of social media, we don't have to be limited by face-to-face interactions. We can use our platforms to advocate, educate, and raise awareness. Let's change even one person's mind. While the threats of racism and ethno-nationalism loom, there is truly no action too small to make a difference. My friends, finally, I ask you always to be bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of rights. Oseye Ghana. Inaction and silence will not protect you when it matters. Heed these words from a wise African king, Haile Selassie I, Emperor of Ethiopia. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted and the indifference of those who should have known better, that silence of the voice of injustice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. I say your silence will not protect you. Our social responsibility includes upholding racial justice. Be bold, be courageous. Medasi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for that powerful oration. Please thank Juliana Nkrumah. What a powerful speech. Thank you, Juliana. Well, we're now moving to the awards segment of the evening. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll be introduced to some of the outstanding work our finalists have been doing to advocate for the rights of a diverse range of people and communities right across Australia. Will you please welcome the Chief Executive of the Australian Human Rights Commission, Leanne Smith, to tell us a bit more about the awards.
Wow. Today we had a morning tea for all of the finalists at the Human Rights Commission so they could get to know each other. And I mentioned that Juliana would be speaking tonight, and I said, I think I'm pretty sure Juliana will be loud and proud with what she has to say. Can you join me once more in congratulating her? It's inspiring to see Juliana's boldness and her courage, and something for us all to live up to, I think. I'd also like to thank Uncle Brendan personally for an amazing welcome to country today too. But now it's time, as we're saying, to shift to the awards section. So after the fantastic oration, we're going to now start to celebrate the people we're here to recognise tonight. The Commission has been presenting these Human Rights Awards for 38 years. And we do it to recognise, elevate and celebrate the quiet impact and achievements of human rights advocates working across Australia in all kinds of sectors and in many different circumstances. I have to confess to you, it's the highlight for all of our staff of the year, because there's a lot of hard work in human rights, as many of you know, and this is a way for us to realise that progress does happen, however slow and small it might be. Sometimes we do these awards on the smell of an oily rag, and other times we've done it with the support of amazing organisations and people, as with tonight. But it would be really not right for me if I didn't ask you to join me now in recognising the amazing staff at the Australian Human Rights Commission who volunteer their time on top of their normal jobs to make sure we can deliver these awards every year. So please join me in thanking them. Tonight we get to shine a light on the extraordinary work of amazing people who often go unrecognised for their efforts in protecting and promoting human rights in Australia. The 20 finalists we are honouring this evening were chosen by our independent panels from almost 300 nominations across 5 different categories. This was one of the strongest responses to nominations in the history of the awards, and I want to congratulate every single person who was nominated for the important work they do, and thank everyone who went to the trouble of making those nominations. It was no mean feat for our panels to get down to these 20 finalists. In choosing the finalists in each of the categories, our judges considered the nominees' achievements over the past 12 months, as well as their ongoing contribution to the advancement of human rights. We congratulate all of them on their selection as finalists, and note that no matter what the outcome of tonight's awards, every one of them deserves our admiration and our gratitude for making a real difference in the lives of the people and the communities they serve. We'll find out more about each of our finalists as we progress through the evening, but to start with, let me introduce you to the finalists for this year's Young People Award.
I am passionate about ending violence against women and children. What drives me to do the work that I do is in March of 2023, I lost my mum Jackie to domestic violence homicide. After her death, I made a promise to her that I would never let her name be forgotten, that I would push for better support to be available for our women, and that I would push for great legal change. The differences that I have made is I have been able to give women a place where they can share their stories. They can celebrate the achievements they've made in leaving a toxic and unhealthy relationship and celebrate their achievements. To me, human rights means to be free. It means to be free to be who you want to be, to feel safe in your own home as a woman, and as a child or young person who grows up in domestic and family violence, that you are not painted with the same paintbrush. You can amount to anything that you want to amount to.
I want to help people with disability to live the best life. I would like to see other people with disabilities to have a good job like mine and have a great NDIS plan that supports them to reach their full goals. And being able to be in our community and being able to enjoy their life, which is a blessing. I want people that can hear me and understand me. Just because you have a disability, it does not mean you can't contribute to a workplace or make decisions about your own life. And I want all people with disabilities to reach their full potential and be a part of our amazing community that we have. I have friends who cannot find jobs, and I know that they have lots to offer, and I just want to tell people about that. I think that everyone should be treated fairly with the right respect and kindness. It's all about having the right to a safe and healthy life, about fairness to be paid properly and fairness to have access to medical support and fairness to affordable housing and fairness to participate in our amazing community like everyone should.
Growing up in Cunnamulla, I was never really thought of someone that could do what I've done. And coming from a small outback town, and then to be on a stage like this, it's not just about recognition for me. It's what it represents for my community and the young people that I work with. What drives me is love. Love for my people, love for the young people that have been written off from the start, and for the community that raised me. I know what it's like to feel unseen, and the work that I do is because every young person deserves someone to believe in them, to remind them that they're not broken, they're just healing. And that's what I needed once, and that's what I try and do for all of my young people, is to be there for them. And that's what drives me. What I'm hoping to achieve is for every young person in Queensland, in Australia, in the world to know that they're not broken, they're becoming. The work that I'm doing here is to not highlight anyone, but it's to help everyone see that it's possible, no matter where you're from, no matter what your background is, what your religion, what your race, you are becoming.
At its heart, my goal is simple. I want young people to be heard where decisions are made and for those decisions to change because of it. And that feels very apt, making this video directly from COP30 in the Amazon, bringing young Australian voices to the climate decision-making table. What drives me are the patterns I keep seeing across the country, the same injustices wearing different faces. In Tassie, I met children inside Ashley Youth Detention Centre creating art that spoke louder than any submission to government. In North Queensland, I listened to First Nations teenagers who had been removed from their families and were building youth councils to reclaim what was stolen. What drives me is knowing that these aren't isolated stories. They are the result of choices our society chooses to make. Choices to fund prisons instead of prevention, to treat disability as an afterthought, to treat remote communities as expendable. And what keeps me going is the fire in young people themselves. They are not waiting for permission to lead. They are already building their own solutions. My role is to make sure those solutions and the young people behind them cannot be ignored.
What an inspiring young people. It's time now to get our award presentations underway. Will you please welcome the European Union Ambassador to Australia, His Excellency Gabriel Vicentin.
Thank you very much. So, good evening, and welcome also from my side to this celebration of the remarkable ways people can achieve incredible things for the benefit of their community and the humanity at large. But before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I would also like to thank the Australian Human Rights Commission for organizing this event and for the great work they do in promoting and protecting human rights in Australia. The European Union in Australia is proud to enjoy such a long-standing relationship with the Commission, an organization that is not only like-minded partner, but, if you allow me, is a friend institution. So, it has been already reminded, but I would like to say it once again. 77 years ago, the Universal Declaration on Human Rights was adopted. And over these decades, its principles have proven not only valuable, but essential. Principles that each of us must continue to uphold in our daily lives. Promoting inclusion in our communities, championing the rights of women and children, or protecting those fleeing terror or discrimination. All of this work is deeply intertwined with the values set out in that declaration. And the European Union firmly believes that human rights are for all people, in all their diversity and in their shared humanity. They are a cornerstone on how we act at home and the foundation of our relationships with partners around the world. And, of course, with Australia. Because both the European Union and Australia are not just economic partners. And we are not just economic powers. We are, and we should be even more, powers in promoting human rights, both at home and abroad. But I think we have to acknowledge that we are already working on it, and we have already achieved big successes, both at home and abroad. And I would invite you to clap, because this Australia, modern Australia, is inclusive and in a society which is doing a great job, and I would like to acknowledge the former Attorney General, Mr. Dreyfus, for his great job in promoting human rights. But of course, the path has to still be walked through, and we are not there yet. So, we both know that respect for human rights is intrinsic to a healthy, safe, and thriving society. But without advocates, these values risk fading. And it is advocates, like those we are honoring tonight, who keep them alive. Human rights advocates are the conscience of humanity. They remind us of the essential ingredients needed for everyone to feel safe and able to thrive. So tonight, I'm delighted that the EU is once again sponsoring and presenting the Young People's Award. And on this, I would just like to quote the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, who said, "You are never too young to lead, and you should never doubt your capacity to triumph where others have not. So I would add that our youth is our future, the foundation on which our societies stand, and tonight's finalists exemplify this truth. They are powerful role models who have shone a light on issues that affect us all. So, from protecting Australians from domestic violence to combating racism and discrimination, from amplifying the voices of children and young people in government to championing inclusivity for all our finalists have made profound contributions to holding Australia accountable and reminding us of our shared humanity. So I thank you and all the courageous individuals represented here tonight for choosing to be brave and to act. Your courage deserves recognition, and by honoring it, we reinforce the values and principles that help us build a world where everyone belongs. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those remarks and for the EU's ongoing support for these awards. I would now like to invite to the stage Australia's National Children's Commissioner, Deb Zorbas, to help present the Young People's Award for 2025.
Good evening, everybody. It's sort of a bit of a breathtaking event. I feel breathless with excitement, and I have to say those videos just are a snapshot of the beautifulness of our youth in this country. So I'm about 3 weeks into this new role. I keep saying that because I can't believe I'm here. It's a privilege to be, I think, the third National Children's Commissioner in this country. And I have to say, every time I hear about the young people and these awards, I'm mesmerised by their energy, their creativity and their solutions focused. I want to say the phrase, "we are becoming," what a beautiful phrase. So I just want to say congratulations to all of you tonight. So I think now we now move on in terms of the actual recipients. I think in many ways it's going to be a thrilling night for all of you now we've shown you up on the screen. So please hold your applause until the names of all the 4 finalists have been read out. So I hope that you can do that for me. The finalists in the young persons categories are Shakira Robertson for her work to prevent violence against women and children. I know you want to clap, don't you? Look, just clap. You may as well. You may as well. The ambassador's doing it. Jarib Branfield Bradshaw for creating culturally safe spaces and providing support for young people in his community. Round of applause. Yes. Charlotte Bailey for campaigning for inclusive employment and fair pay for people with a disability. Round of applause. And Satara Kakumaran for amplifying the voices of children and young people to government. A big round of applause for Satara. Now, over to you. Now, this is that we need to drum roll.
No, give me the script because I don't know what I have to say. All right, so...
We'll get it right.
I am GV. Okay, all right, I am GV. All right, so I have the envelope. So, and the award goes to Shakira Robertson.
I'm just going to apologise now. I am not very good with public speaking, and quite frankly, I hate it. So just keep that in mind. I am absolutely gobsmacked to be holding this, but I just need to say that this is not mine alone. It belongs to every single person who has supported me and stood by me and helped me find myself through the most traumatic grief. To my siblings, this is for us. We've faced more than most people could ever imagine. And if tonight proves anything, it's that no matter how hard life hits, we keep getting back up. I lost my mum to domestic violence, and her absence has shaped every part of my being. She raised the four of us on her own through circumstances no parent should ever have to face. She is the inspiration behind everything I do, and this award is truly for her. For her strength, her love, and her sacrifices. Thank you to everyone who's believed in me this far, and thank you to the Australian Human Rights Commission for this level of recognition. And Mum, this one's for you.
Congratulations, Kira. What an inspiring young woman. And thank you, Ambassador Vicentin and Commissioner Sawbris. Our next category is our Media and Creative Industries Award. Let's find out what drives these people and organisations to tell their stories.
What drives me to keep doing the work that I do, I guess it's being a voice for stolen generation people, advocating for them and continue to fight the fight for stolen generation people right across Western Australia, but also right across Australia as well, and ensure that all Australians are learning the truth about the genocide that took place here in this country.
I think the nomination will allow us to be more free to tell the truth and educate those people that are unsure. So really the 96% of Australia that don't know their history. And obviously for us, it's First Nation people don't quite understand their history either.
We have shown this documentary over 100 times in private screenings with community groups, government departments and corporations. The response has been astonishing and sadly many people admitting they knew little about this. So to get that message out there has been a great achievement.
Personally, I'm motivated by the challenge of making what seems impossible stories possible. In Killjoy, we wanted to normalise the conversation around family violence, and we wanted to talk and shed light on the lack of support for children bereaved by family homicide. I like the challenge to use what tools we have to try and make meaningful change.
I think it's the sting of injustice that drives me to do the work I do. As a child, I was bullied a lot at school, which meant that I spent a lot of time alone, and I needed to find a way through that experience that wasn't just about demonising the world. So I think I found a way to see the good and the bad in people. And that's the cornerstone on which my filmmaking is based. To answer the question of what human rights mean to me, I try to imagine a world without human rights, and that's not a world I want to live in or I want my children to grow up in. Human rights is something that we have to hold very dear.
My name is Ivan Omani and I'm the founder of In Films, the production company behind Unbreakable, the Juliana Nkrumah story. What I hope that we've achieved with this film is to give a much fuller picture of that story. Juliana's book was all written from the first person. It was all her experience. And what the film has done is to show all of the perspectives of the people who were around her at the time, including the bystanders who now regret not having taken action to help her years and years and years ago. I think that as filmmakers, we've been given a pretty extraordinary platform to highlight whatever we want to highlight. It's kind of a license to be nosy, and I think what drives us is the desire to do good with that license that we're given.
Being selected as a finalist was a huge thrill. I think journalism that recognises human rights, that champions the rights of others, is some of the most profound and important work we can do. I think this is journalism at its most fundamental. This is journalism that can make a difference, that can change people's lives, that can change community perceptions and bring about real change. Often the difference that's made with these kinds of stories can feel marginal, can feel almost imperceptible, but it's never nothing. It's always something. It's always changing the conversation. It's always changing community perceptions. It's putting pressure on governments and authorities where they need to be held to account. Often it feels like nothing is happening, but sometimes things are. I think very simply, human rights are about equality. They're a formal recognition that all of us are equal. All of us are worthy. And in an increasingly unequal and inequitable world, that's always worth fighting for. That's always worth reminding people of. Everybody's equal.
Wow, what an impressive amount of work on such important topics. I'd now like to welcome Australia's Age Discrimination Commissioner, Robert Fitzgerald, to join me to present the award. And I'm going across here.
Good, thanks. Thanks, Carla. And I must say it's a great joy to be with you on the lands of the Gadigal people. It is very much true that media reflects society, but it also has the ability to shape our society and who we are. And this award spans journalism, film, TV and radio, literature and music, performing arts, visual arts, fashion and advertising. Telling stories that expose injustice or celebrate human rights achievements and principles is a vital part of both Australia's human rights ecosystem and our cultural landscape.
SBS is proud to partner with the Australian Human Rights Commission to support the Media and Creative Industries Award, recognising the important role our sector plays in deepening understanding and promoting a fairer society. For SBS, this work sits at the heart of our purpose. The stories we tell shape how people see the world and each other. When media and creative professionals bring important human stories to audiences, they help build understanding, challenge misinformation, and make space for new voices and perspectives. For 50 years, SBS has been telling stories that reflect the diversity of Australia, giving voice to communities often underrepresented. We believe that inclusive storytelling and media representation are powerful contributors to a more cohesive Australia. That's why we celebrate the champions in this industry. Their courage and creativity push our national conversation forward. They remind us that accurate, fair and diverse storytelling is essential to an engaged, inclusive and just society. SBS is honoured to recognise their work tonight.
Thanks, Carla, and a great shout out to SBS. We're very grateful for their support and sponsorship. Congratulations to all our nominees on their outstanding work, and the finalists for the Media and Creative Industries Award are Ben Doherty for reporting the stories of people experiencing human rights abuses and exposing those who fail to protect them. To Yokai, Healing Our Spirit, for their documentary Genocide in the Wildflower State, showing the power of filmmaking as a truth-telling mechanism. Fringe Dweller Films, for their documentary Killjoy, the story of resilience and the systemic failure to hear the voices of child survivors of family violence. And finally, In Films, for their documentary Unbreakable Yalna Dokic story, highlighting how society turned a blind eye to abuse and the importance of safeguarding children's rights in sport. And the winner is...
And the award goes to Ben Doherty.
I'd like to thank everybody in this room, everybody watching. I'd like to thank the Commission for this extraordinary honour, of which I must say I feel wholly undeserving. Can I pay tribute to all of the finalists, acknowledge all of their extraordinary work? In fact, can I acknowledge everybody in this room for the work that they do in that most profound and fundamental of human activities, human endeavours, and that is making better the lives of others. On a night like tonight, I'm reminded of the words of Dr. King, or a quote attributed usually to Dr. King. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. He was right, but that's not the whole story. He was right, but that moral arc doesn't bend itself. It needs to be forced, it needs to be pulled, it needs to be pushed, it needs to be cajoled, it needs to be agitated, it needs to be forced by sheer bloody-mindedness, and that is the work. That shifting of that moral arc is done by the people in this room tonight, and I pay tribute to you all for your extraordinary work. I dedicate this to all of those around the world who face persecution, who face oppression, who face violence, who face genocide. May you find justice. May you know peace. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Ben, and thank you, Robert. Our next category is the Community Award. Here's a little more about why they do what they do.
We tackle racial inequity in the arts and creative sectors at Diversity Arts Australia. And we know that when people are excluded from the national narrative through, whether it be through music, film, books, performance, then it's not really telling the full story of who Australia is as a nation. We're really driven by our kind of collective belief within our team and our board of the need to have a creative sector that is actually reflective of the diversity of our society, that it will be a richer society for it, and also the acknowledgement and recognition that it's actually harming people who are being excluded, but it's also harming society as a whole by missing out on, you know, this incredible rich diversity of, you know, kind of thought, experience, creative work. Diversity arts is led by people with lived experience of cultural, linguistic, racial diversity, and quite often marginalisation as well. And so I think we all have in different ways our own deep commitment to this area and to seeing change happen.
I'm Marjorie Chavez. I'm the founder and director of social enterprise Welcome Merchant. I'd like to think that we have changed the way refugees and people seeking asylum are viewed in this country. When we get a request from companies or a family putting on a party and they want to have a refugee caterer there, that to us is success. When we see the merchants that we work with getting interview features or TV appearances, that makes us so happy and really drives the work that we do, is seeing the merchants and artists get more visibility. I have seen firsthand how, you know, giving a refugee the right to protection and the impact that that has made in their lives by them being able to work or their kids being able to go to school just being able to live life with dignity. That to me is human rights.
When you do this kind of work, you definitely don't do it for the recognition. You do it because you've really seen and felt and even lived the gaps that I guess shouldn't exist. And I guess for me and a lot of young, like people who work in this space, you can't really rest until something changes. What drives me is knowing that a single moment of connection can change the trajectory of someone's life. And through Womankind, I've really seen what happens when a young person feels truly seen for the first time, when they realise that they're not broken despite, their diagnosis, when they find their voice and know that it really matters. A sense of belonging and access to quality mental health support and services should never be a privilege, it's a birthright. Human rights are the promise that every person deserves dignity, safety, respect, opportunity, and a real sense of belonging. For me, human rights means creating systems that listen to lived experience, especially, and the lives and stories of people who have gone through a whole range of different things. And especially for young people, it's to be connectors and make sure that they feel like their voice is heard and it's important, and that it's also, I guess, protected by human rights as well.
When I began my advocacy journey, many individuals in remote communities didn't know they had the right to speak up, ask questions, or expect respect and equality in disability and aged care spaces. Today, I'm proud to see people questioning decisions, asserting their rights, and standing up for themselves. People are now more aware that those who are aged or living with disability have the same rights as everyone else, and they're asking important questions around inclusion in employment, dignity and respect in public spaces, choice and control when receiving support, and last but not the least, guarantees by legislation to protect their human rights. There's nothing more powerful than seeing someone standing up for their rights, asking questions, and also be truly listened to. That's what keeps my heart in advocacy work.
Such wonderful work being done by all these finalists. To present the Community Award, I'd now like to welcome to the stage Race Discrimination Commissioner Giridharan Sivaraman and the Chair of the Federation of Ethnic Communities Councils of Australia, Mr. Peter Dukas.
Thanks very much, Carla. And Juliana, do you want to take my job? Because I reckon you do it so much better. You were amazing. Thank you. You're incredible. It's really wonderful to be here tonight. I really want to thank FECA, Federation of Ethnic Communities Council Australia, for their sponsorship, for their support, and particularly for their support of the anti-racism work that we do at the Australian Human Rights Commission. And I'm really pleased to be presenting the Community Award because community is at the heart of everything. Community is at the heart of anti-racism work, but community is at the heart of all advocacy work. The best solutions, the solutions that help everyone, are the solutions that come when you consult and you co-design and you resource community and community organisations. And so it is so wonderful to be recognising community organisations tonight. Peter, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Giri. Hi, everyone. I acknowledge we're on Gadigal land and want to pay my respects to elders past and present. Juliana stole most of my thunder tonight, but I'm going to try. But at FECA, we see community members across Australia working to make life better in so many ways, and it never fails to impress me. For many years, FECA, for 50 years soon, FECA has proudly stood alongside the Australian Human Rights Commission and the Human Rights Awards, united by a shared vision of dignity, diversity, and justice for all. Our partnership reflects our deep commitment to inclusivity, respect and equal opportunity, values that shape a fairer and more compassionate Australia. And, if I can make a confession, I am, and this is way off script, but I am a fan of The Crown. And watching The Crown and their reflection of the great Bob Hawke's endless advocacy against apartheid, I considered Australia's chance today in this world of Donald Trump and this world of increasing normalisation of racism with Nazis in the front of the New South Wales Parliament. We have a golden opportunity in Australia, and I call on the Australian government to fully implement the National Anti-Racism Framework and retake its position as a leader of the Anglosphere and the leader in the world of anti-racism. It's where we belong, and we've done it before. It is our place in the world. We were the first. Did you know that Australia was the first chair of the United Nations? So this is where we belong on the international stage. So we are honoured to co-present the Community Award with my friend Giri and sharing a light on the unsung heroes whose tireless efforts strengthen the fabric of our society and remind us that real change begins in community, from community, and by community. We celebrate those who make human rights real in these small places, our communities, those constituents that make up the Ethnic Communities Councils, who make up the Federation of Ethnic Communities Councils that I'm proud to be the chair of. This is the heart and soul of multicultural Australia. And we share the dignity and we share the understanding of justice that they truly represent. So I'll hand over to my friend Giri momentarily, and I'll be back to announce the winner.
Thanks, Peter. So the finalists for this year's Community Award are Diversity Arts Australia for promoting human rights through cultural storytelling, campaigns and programs. Welcome Merchant for providing a business platform for refugees and asylum seekers. Womankind for preventative mental health initiatives for young people in rural, regional and remote Australia. And Ramnik Singh Walia for his grassroots advocacy for equality and inclusion for seniors, people with disabilities and First Peoples communities in the top end.
And the award goes to Ramnik Singh Walia.
Satnam Shri Vaheguru. Good evening, everyone. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather tonight, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us. Before anything else, I want to congratulate all the incredible finalists and already announced winners here tonight. The work each of you is doing whether it's advocacy, justice, community building, media, or amplifying unheard voices. It is extraordinary and inspiring. You represent the very best of Australia. Your passion, your commitment, your courage inspire people far beyond your communities and states. And a special shout out to the outstanding finalist from the Northern Territory, my territory. Looks like the Territorians came ready to party and prove that even though we are small in number, we are mighty in spirit. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible support of Darwin Community Legal Service and Older Persons Advocacy Network for championing advocacy work for seniors across territory. Your commitment ensures that our older community members, people living with disability, are not just heard, and people living with disability, sorry for the mistake, but respected and well supported. And a very special thank you to Rachel, the Chief Executive of DCLS, which is Darwin Community Legal Service, who is here with us. Rachel, those advocacy trips once felt impossible, too costly, too ambitious, too far beyond our budgets. But you made them happen. You moved the numbers, shifted priorities, and somehow brought dreams into the realm of yes, we can. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel. Standing here tonight, receiving the award is an honor that fills me with humility and deep gratitude. I accept this recognition with a full heart, not because of what I have achieved, but because of the people and communities who have trusted me, guided me, and allowed me to walk alongside them. I must say that real, lasting advocacy is never the achievement of one person. It is the collective strength of communities that come together and refuse to give up. I have witnessed this power across the Northern Territory throughout my advocacy journey. I saw it in Meningreta, where people stood with me as we tirelessly advocated for installation of a disability passenger lift at Australia's most remote airport. That lift now allows people with disabilities to travel safely and stay connected with their families and friends. I saw it again on the Cox Peninsula, where the community and I together pushed for construction of ferry terminal that meets disability standards for accessible public transport. Today, the terminal allows people who use wheelchairs to board and disembark safely, independently, and with dignity. Sorry, it's not too long, but yeah. Tonight is also personal for me, as someone who came to Australia as an immigrant, someone who chose this country and was embraced by it. I must speak honestly. It hurts to see rising hatred online and on the streets towards immigrants. It hurts to see people with extreme, hateful views towards migrants are praised as nationalists. Some forget that their own ancestors were migrants, and this country has always been a story of arrivals. Sorry? Oh, okay. Migrants help shape Australia's culture, workforce, economy, and identity. We do not divide, we connect. We do not weaken, we strengthen. We do not threaten, we enrich. The real threat is hatred, not people seeking better life. And honestly, who wants a life with the same thing on the plate every night? Imagine Australia without Italian pasta, Greek gyros, Arab falafel, Thai green curry, or best of the best, Rumnik's butter chicken. Today, gosh, I love my butter chicken. Okay. Together we bring flavor, creativity, and color. Migrants don't dilute Australia, they brighten it and make us truly vibrant. Before I finish, I want to leave you with a question to contemplate. Did you know that in 1948, Australia played a leading role in drafting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? We should be proud of it because we helped to shape what would become the world's moral compass for dignity, equality, and justice for all. And here is my question for decision makers and people who have powers. It's been 77 years. How come the country that helped to draft Universal Declaration of Human Rights does not have National Human Rights Act or Federal Human Rights Act? No wonder people love when I ask questions. Why do we have a patchwork of legal frameworks for human rights protection? Patchwork in which rights protected are scattered across legislation, common law, and constitution. Just wondering, Well, thank you, everyone. Well, I don't want to get in trouble. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Australia. Have a beautiful evening. Remember, justice starts when we see everyone as equals, not exceptions. Rights are not granted. They are defended. So keep advocating for good. Stay strong. God bless. Love you all.
Congratulations, Rumnik, and thank you, Giri and Peter. Our next presentation is the Law Award. Let's find out a bit more about these remarkable people.
The work that I've done, I hope, will make an absolutely enormous difference to the health of people in Australia. We know that many people choose not to have genetic testing because they are afraid of insurance discrimination based on their genetic results. The work that I've done is removing that barrier completely and giving people that freedom to make genetic decisions based on their health. We have laws against racial discrimination, against sex discrimination, and now we want to make sure that genetic discrimination is brought into the fold, and we are almost there, and we're very excited to see that that human right area around discrimination is also looking at genetics and the use of genetic information and the protection of people's genetic information from being used in ways that's harmful.
I feel extremely humbled, and I also feel privileged to be in this position and to be able to help those that are disadvantaged and who often also feel unseen and unheard, and to really make changes, particularly to First Nations peoples and marginalised communities. My motivation comes from communities, elders, those I look up to, those who are striving to make positive changes as well, and also lived experiences. Unfortunately, I've witnessed firsthand injustices, those that don't always make the headlines but have real traumatic changes and impacts on individuals and communities. I'm really grateful to be a part of the work that I'm involved in and to see the positive differences and changes that it's made to individuals, and also on a federal level as well. Working with stolen generation survivors was something really impactful and emotional to me, and also spiritual as well. Someone who's from a family that has witnessed firsthand the injustices caused by colonisation really motivated me to take part in these changes and to take them on at a personal level as well.
I'm proud that both my work and the work of the Northern Territory Coroner's Office is considered to be making a positive contribution to families and institutions engaged in our coronial processes. In our office and in my work, we don't really use the language of human rights. We do use words like compassion, respect, engagement, safety, and inclusion. We also use words like fairness, rigour, and truth. It's the aspirations behind those words that drive me to do the work that I do. The families I work with seek to know the truth about the death of their loved ones. The search for truth is not normally out of self-interest. It's because they don't want others to suffer what they have suffered. The search for truth is about the dignity of human life and finding ways to preserve life.
I'm really driven to achieve choice and control for people with disability in Australia, and upholding people with disability to have the choice and control over who provides them with support, the supports that they receive. Is a very healthy dose of anger and outrage, which I think that every human rights lawyer needs to have to get up in the morning, along with their cup of coffee, of course, and to face the day and the battles that ensue in being a human rights lawyer. Unfortunately, those rights, these human rights, or Australian values even, they're very vulnerable to being eroded. You know, there are things that we have to be constantly vigilant about upholding and defending. So I think, to me, human rights is actually to be Australian, and if you value what it is to be Australian and those amazing values we have around equality, mateship, looking after each other, you know, looking after the underdog, you know, the way we dig in and help each other in a natural disaster, you know, looking out for your mates. That's really what is at the heart of human rights, I like to think anyway. That's what it means to me.
Wow, what an amazing group of people. To present this award, will you please welcome Australia's Sex Discrimination Commissioner, Dr. Anna Cody, and Acting Director of Anti-Discrimination New South Wales, Mia Zara.
Thank you so much, Carla, and such a pleasure to be here on Gadigal land, and what an incredible group of nominees that we have there. Such a formidable group of lawyers that we are seeing in their work in every day. And also just such an inspiring event to be here and to hear of all of the work that everyone is doing. And as our previous speaker just talked about, the hope that that inspires for all of us. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cody. It's really inspiring to hear how the finalists are using their expertise to make a difference in our community. If I may, I would like to take this opportunity to say why the Australian Human Rights Awards, and in particular the Law Award, are so important to Anti-Discrimination New South Wales, especially this year. Anti-Discrimination New South Wales is the state equivalent of the Australian Human Rights Commission. We are committed to eliminating discrimination and promoting equality and equal treatment for everyone in New South Wales, including by resolving inquiries and complaints, raising awareness about discrimination and its impacts, and taking action to influence change. It's a privilege to be here tonight, standing beside our colleagues and our dear friends at the Australian Human Rights Commission, honouring Australian human rights heroes, and we've seen many tonight. Anti-Discrimination New South Wales rarely sponsors awards, but this year's Human Rights Awards are different. In April this year, our immediate past president, Helen McKenzie, sadly passed away. Anti-Discrimination New South Wales is proud to sponsor the 2025 Law Award in memory of Helen McKenzie. Helen was a trailblazing lawyer and president of Anti-Discrimination New South Wales from February 22 to March 25. Helen was also an employment and discrimination lawyer for more than 30 years and a partner of global law firm Ashurst. Helen led a truly remarkable life, the life of a formidable leader, a brilliant lawyer, a cherished mentor, a trailblazer, and for so many, a dear friend. Helen was also a much-loved wife and mother and sister and aunt. I wish to acknowledge Helen's family who are in the audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. Helen's vision and commitment to law and justice has left a lasting impact on all of us. Anti-Discrimination New South Wales is proud to sponsor this year's Law Award in Helen's honour and congratulates the amazing finalists.
Thank you, Mia, and Helen was indeed a fantastic human rights champion and a true pioneer for women in the field of law. The finalists for this year's Law Award are also 4 amazing pioneers and formidable women. Elizabeth Armitage for using her role as Northern Territory coroner to hold institutions accountable for protecting people's right to live full, safe and equal lives. Jane Tiller for her leadership in ethical genomic medicine and her work to ban genetic discrimination in the life insurance industry. Tekkan Cochrane for creating safer systems through law reform for First Peoples and migrants. And Belinda Kochanovska for using the law to restore dignity and autonomy to people with disability.
It's the envelope. And the award goes to Elizabeth Armitage.
Firstly, we all know that this is a team award, not an individual award, and everyone on my team knows who they are, so thank you. I'm here without my phone, so you can understand that this is unexpected. I often tell myself that even if I can't change the outcome, I can change the process. All of us can change the process in which we work and the way that in which we work. If all of us change the process, I'm sure that we will change the outcome. Thank you.
Congratulations, Elizabeth, and thank you, Mia and Anna. We've now come to the final category in our awards tonight, the prestigious Australian Human Rights Medal. Previous recipients of this medal include Fred Hollows, Peter Grester, Dorothy Hoddinott, Ian Thorpe, Jonathan Thurston, the Honourable Peter McClellan, Chrissy Foster, Professor Larissa Berendt, and Australia's Disability Discrimination Commissioner Rosemary Kayers. Tonight, one of our 4 finalists will join these esteemed group of human rights heroes. But first, let's hear a bit more from these amazing people about their work.
We work in 2 major regions, and we work towards giving people agency in their lives, giving people opportunities that they would never get in mainstream Australia. So we work for them, and we work for their children, we work for their self-determination and their right to choose. And that's what I believe human rights should be all about, people having a voice. What drives me to do the work that I do is the fact that I came from the stolen generation, and the work that I do is deeply personal in the sense that it's about healing, it's about the truth, and it's about creating a difference for the future of the children. Kids are happier, families are happier, and people do have purpose, and they endeavour to take that on with gusto.
What difference do I think I've made or hope to make? Well, opening people's minds and hearts to the full lived experience of our people in this country. There's been some incredibly dark times, but also we want to highlight those injustices, and we want to work with non-Aboriginal people to understand how we've got to walk together to create change and transformation. I think we've been able to do that. Is the work done? No, of course it's not over. But we've made some really great gains, not only through the Yiddish Justice Commission, but also, Australia's first treaty, which is really exciting. That's a testament to the generations of elders and leaders who have stepped up, fighting for human rights, advocating for our rights as well. So, I've been able to, play a really small part of that journey and be a part of the change that we're looking to make as First Peoples here in the state as well. But I want to, again, stress the fact that we walk beside non-Aboriginal people. Our elders and leaders have always said that, and we'll continue to live through those values as well. So that's what is a motivator for me, working and walking alongside our people and non-Aboriginal people to be able to get outcomes, but elevate that lived experience, highlight the injustices that are happening. They're not all historic. Many are still happening today. So that's what's a driver and a motivator, to see change and transformation for our people, not only in Victoria, but right across Australia. Wuruk.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be selected as a finalist. It's a great honour to receive this recognition for the impact of my work. It's also very exciting to see that the rights of trans children and young people in Australia are being held in such high regard. Every trans young person I see at the Royal Children's Hospital has their own unique story. Every time I meet with them, I'm reminded of how difficult it is to be trans and how hard it is for their families to protect them. The stigma, the discrimination, the exclusion, rejection and harassment they receive on a day-to-day basis, along with the mental health struggles that can accompany this, is hard to hear and often very hard to hold. But seeing these same kids thrive with support, with the love and understanding of their families, with access to the medical care they need, makes it worthwhile. The joy they show in being able to live as their authentic self, it's brilliant, and it's this that drives me to do whatever I can to help them. Equality is fundamental, and trans rights are human rights.
My name is Anjali Sharma and I am a law student and the founder of the Duty of Care campaign. I was born in India and my whole life I've grown up witnessing the impacts of climate change in a country that has been experiencing it for many years, on my family who all still live there. And seeing what it does to people who live in a country where climate change is the norm, but also they don't have necessarily the resources and the income to rebuild after disaster or safeguard themselves before the next disaster like we do here. Deeply understanding that sense of injustice is what drives me to do the work I do. Part of our work has been bringing young people together from across Australia to meet with their MPs, to meet with their senators, and to give them a chance to talk directly to the people who make the decisions and tell them why they want a duty of care. I really hope that throughout the work that we do, we show other young people that there are avenues to get involved and that you don't have to sit with this feeling of climate anxiety and despair, that you can actually channel it into real, accessible pathways.
What an extraordinary group of human rights heroes. To make the presentation, I'd now like to welcome once again the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, Hugh de Kretser, and the previous winner of the Human Rights Medal and our inspiring orator, Juliana Nkrumah. Welcome them back to the stage.
Thanks so much, Carla, and a huge congratulations to all the people who are nominated for this award and the finalists. So the finalists, the four finalists, and Juliana's going to... so the four finalists are Travis Lovett for his leadership in truth-telling and advancing systemic change for First Peoples, and Anjali Sharma for campaigning for a duty of care to protect future generations from the impact of climate change, William Tilmuth for his lifetime dedication to advancing self-determination, social justice and opportunity for First Peoples, and Michelle Telfer for her advocacy for the human rights of trans and gender diverse young people.
And the recipient of this year's Human Rights Medal is, drum roll, will you get? Yeah! William Tilmuth.
Mind you, there's not two of us. No, it's my grandson. Yeah. Kingsley Tilmuth, he has come to be a support for me, because my legs ain't that good anymore. But it's a good exposure for him too. Yeah. Which I think is good value. What do you do? First and foremostly, I'd like to recognise that these lands of the Gadigal people and the Gadigal people themselves. I honour you, your members, your elders and your ancestors, and I thank you for having me here. I want to thank the Australian Human Rights Commission and President Hugh. I congratulate all the finalists. I forgot to thank you too. That's okay. I want to congratulate all the finalists and recognise your work in protecting and championing fundamental human rights in Australia. I do not believe in individual accolades. This award goes to all those of the communities that we work with, the people we serve. My responsibility is to serve those people, to serve all people. That is our culture. The individual is the greatest risk to human rights. I'd like to recognise the elders who have gone before us, the people who laid down the foundations. It is imperative that we continue their legacy and their culture, and their culture is that what we must continue. I'd like to recognise the people who have supported us, and there's many, many goodwill people out there who have come to our assistance, albeit without government funding, but generosity was overwhelming. I'd like to recognise and thank my staff who work with us, him being one. I'm proud to hold the responsibility and care for the oldest living culture in the world, the oldest system of governance, education, health, law and human rights. But we must face the daily battle against a system designed by assimilation, genocide and injustice. You want to open that for me? Oh, gee, shaking. Everybody needs one of these. At Children's Ground, we are not allowed to uphold our basic human rights to teach children in our own communities, through our own culture, to a culture that they were born into. It's something that historically has not been afforded us. The Northern Territory government refuses the entry of United Nations human rights investigators into prisons, where prison rates are skyrocketing with overcrowding, where the children as young as 10 are being locked up, and where we use spit hoods against children. In Australia, we have had more deaths in custody this year than in previous years. My condolences are to those families who have lost members. All this is preventable. The attack on our children, families and culture is relentless and cruel. The lack of response from governments is an act of complicity to these violations of our rights. I better use the glasses, I don't know why I got them. Don't even fit now. Okay. I stand here proudly as the founding chair of Children's Ground, a First Nations solution that is working where Aboriginal people, their solutions to their problems are being listened to. Evidenced by the government's first independent evaluation, by still awaiting support from government. So we literally had an independent evaluation paid for by the government, which recommended that we should be paid the way that, funded the way that we normally would, anyone else would. But the government still hasn't done anything about it. I wonder what more it would take before the voices and solutions of our people are heard. Together we must rise up against this system that was designed to destroy the very essence of who we are as an Aboriginal people. But this is not just about First Nations people. Here in Australia we are in danger of destroying the very essence of humanity as we fail to rein in extremism and racism and violence against women and in public. This moment carries personal meaning to us. I was forcibly removed from my family as a child. My rights to make decisions about my life was ignored, and I was taken away at the age of 5 and put on a mission north of Darwin. The fair-skinned members of my family were sent south to Adelaide and were told that they had to forget us because their fair skin, they said you can assimilate a lot easier. So I went to Croker Island, 3 of us did, and took 18 years before we met up again. I was denied my language, my identity, culture, and the love of a family. It was a long journey home. I experienced the full force of systems abuse and racism. I was one of the lucky ones. I found my family who embraced me, but I cannot repair what I have lost, and I still question, who am I? My experience has shaped my belief that every child should grow up with family, culture, opportunity, safety, dignity, respect, care and identity as their foundations. Human rights is a lived experience. What drives me is the strength and the determination of our people. I see solutions in every community. I see the culture, vision and the leadership of our people. I have hope for the future generations. I see the brilliance of our young people. Okay. I have hope for our children, that our children can grow up free from oppression, violence, fear, poverty and discrimination. I have hope that we will all together, we will together achieve the society where our people and all people can walk and enjoy equality, dignity and opportunity and freedom and free from injustice. My hope is that our First Nations system of knowledge and our culture and the way of being can be taught to our children. Thank you again for this award. Let us celebrate all who work for the universal dignity equality, freedom and peace that human rights is all about. Thank you. You can clap.
Congratulations, William.
Thank you.
Congratulations, William. It's a well-deserved honour for a lifetime of such incredible work, and I have witnessed the work that William does at Children's Ground when I did a story about kids in detention in the Northern Territory earlier this year, and it really is vital work that he's doing and his team are doing up there. So another round of applause for William. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's ceremony. Many thanks to Juliana for delivering her stirring and powerful oration, and thanks also to all our presenters and speakers. Congratulations to our award recipients, and thanks to all our finalists for the important work they do to advance human rights in Australia. And finally, many thanks to all our guests for your attendance and support this evening here at UTS and online. We look forward to seeing you again next year for another wonderful celebration of human rights heroes. One last thing, could all our finalists please come to the stage right now for some official photos? We promise it will be very quick. And for the rest of our guests here in the Great Hall, please enjoy our post-ceremony reception just outside in the atrium room as you leave the hall. It's been an honour to be your MC tonight. I'm Carla Grant. Thank you so much. Take care and good night.